and let us have our meeting this afternoon. I will now ask for us all to just observe just one moment of silence for prayer and meditation. Thank you so much. I will now hand over to Lindiwe to take us through the formalities for this meeting so that we are within the rules of the National Assembly.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon to you, Chairperson, to the members of this Prestige Committee, also the Minister, the CEOs from all the entities, department officials, and also my colleagues from the Portfolio Committee, Chair. Today is a Thursday, the 9th of October, Chair. 1 o'clock, we are here to discharge our constitutional responsibility. Chair, you have already welcomed all present in this meeting. I would want to confirm the members that are here. Member Murray, Member Abrahams, Member Machato, Member Reverend Kwabaza, Member Mtsweni, Member Munyai, and Member Tlong. Also, Chair, in terms of the apologies, we've received an apology from Member Peters, who is not well. She went to take out the tooth yesterday, but she's not well. Also, Chair, there was an apology from Member Ramayila. I think Member Munyai, the apology is still standing for Member Ramayila. Yes, Chair. Okay, Chair. Thank you very much, Member Munyai. Also, Chair, there was a meeting. I want to confirm yesterday's apology from the Deputy Minister, who indicated that he won't be with us for the 2 days, which is yesterday and today, also due to prior commitments. Chair, after that, we will adopt the agenda and we will proceed to receive an overview from our Minister. And then thereafter, the NDA will present their annual report for the financial year, which is 2024-2025. And then we'll proceed to engage on the contents of the presentation, and then we'll also receive responses from NTA. Chair, that will be the session for the interrogation of the annual report. The committee will proceed to receive a briefing from DSD on the media reports on the 3 million expenditure in New York, the suspensions and irregular appointments of officials, and any other information they want to share with the committee. Chair also will proceed with the committee deliberations and responses, Chair, and then we'll have a closing remarks and meeting, Chair. Chair, can I also make a proposal, if the committee allows me? Yesterday we have deferred the committee program due to time constraints. If the committee can allow that, we amend the agenda to incorporate that agenda item of the committee program. And then 5 to 6 o'clock, you will make your closing remarks and the meeting will adjourn. Thank you very much, Chair. It's safe to say that we are a quorum in this platform meeting, and then we can make decision in line with the rules of the National Assembly. Thank you very much, Chair. Over to you.
Thank you, Lindiwe, for that. I would then ask for the adoption of the agenda from the honourable members. Honourable Abrams.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move for the adoption with the amendment.
Thank you so much, Honourable Abrams. Honourable Munyai.
I do second, Honourable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I now will straight hand over to the Honourable Minister. And now that we have an agenda that has been adopted with the amendment, to give us her overview and proceed with the meeting. Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee of DSD, our Director General of DSD, Mr. Peter Nechupale, Chairperson of the NDA Board, Chief Luvuani Matsila, NDA Acting CEO, Ms. Raphahle Ramkhupa, Acting SASSA CEO, Mr. Brenton van Vreden, all senior managers present here. Good afternoon to you all, and thank you, Honorable Chairperson, for the opportunity to table the annual report of the National Development Agency for 2024-2025 financial year for the Portfolio Committee's consideration. Chair, before I highlight some of the NDA's key achievements for the year under review, I would like to once again inform you, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, that I have seconded Ms. Raphahle Ramkhupa, a seasoned public servant from SASSA, to act in the vacant post of the Chief Executive Officer of NDA. Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, we are joined by the Chairperson of the NDA Board, Chief Luvuani Matsila, who's part of our delegation here today. 2 weeks ago, I met with the board of the NDA and the acting CEO and directed that they act with a sense of urgency to fill the vacant critical post of the CEO and the Chief Financial Officer. I have since granted concurrency to the board to advertise the 2 critical vacancies. On a related matter, Honorable Chairperson, I have set up a panel comprising of government and experienced representatives of civil society organization, including from NEDLAC, to begin the recruitment and selection process for the new board of the NDA for the next 3 years. Once that process is completed, the names of the recommended candidates will be tabled to the cabinet for approval as per the norm. Regarding the removal of the chairperson of the board, Ms. Nozabelo Ruth Bengu, and the then acting CEO, Mr. Tabani Buthelezi, I will, with your permission, Chair, cover this matter comprehensively in the second part of today's agenda. Honorable Chair, the report we are presenting to the committee today shows the scope and scale of the NDA's work on the ground, helping to address some of the most pressing and interconnected development challenges of our time, such as high unemployment, poverty and inequality, as well as climate-related disasters. The continued high demand for the NDA services affirms both its relevance to tackle these challenges and the critical role of the NDA within it. For the year under review, Chair, the Government of the National Unity adopted the Medium-Term Development Plan that says tackling poverty and the rising cost of living as one of the 3 overarching strategy priorities consistent with our pledge to leave no one behind, which requires the NDA to contribute towards poverty eradication and its causes. The NDA posted 83% annual performance rating, which is a dramatic and meaningful improvement that underscores what can be accomplished with purpose-driven leadership. The progress achieved by the NDA this year is not only commendable, but also socially significant. It sends a resounding message that when leadership is decisive, when communities are empowered, and when institutions are aligned to the needs of our people, our goals are within reach. For the year under review, the NDA was able to mobilize additional financial resources that went directly to community-based development, capacity building for civil society organizations with skills to implement development intervention, and creating the much-needed job opportunities. Beyond delivery, the NDA is repositioning itself into a strategic policy player, shaping government response to poverty at its most entrenched levels through robust research and evidence-led dialogue. The NDA has provided the state with insight that are not only timelessly, but essentially. Even as we celebrate progress the NDA has recorded for the year under review, we must confront the remaining challenges with equal urgency. The recent Auditor General's report highlights areas that still requires decisive intervention. The implementation of the areas of action flagged by the Auditor General has already begun, and we will keep the momentum in the current financial year. We will continue investing in the NTA institutional capacity, driving its innovation agenda, and expanding its footprint as a trusted partner in development. Honorable Chair, as I conclude, I wish to extend my sincere gratitude to former Chairperson of the Board, Ms. Nozabelo Ruth Bengu, and the new retired former acting CEO of the NTA, Mr. Bongani Magongo, for their dedicated service to our people. To the staff of the NTA, we thank you for your unwavering service. Honorable Chair, allow me to hand over to the acting CEO of NTA, Ms. Raphahle Ramkhupa, to lead the presentation of the NTA's annual report for 2024-2025 financial year. I thank you for your attention, Honorable Chair and honorable members.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, Minister, Chairperson of the NDA Board, and South Africans and colleagues at large. The presentation today, we are going to do the presentation, but I'm just going to allow my Chairperson just to make some commentary statements before I start with the presentation.
With your permission, Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity for the NDA to present its annual performance report for the 2024-25 financial year. Against the background of the Minister's overview, and thank you, Minister, for the overview, one would just like to emphasize some key performance issues that we stand today having achieved 83% of our annual performance targets, which is an improvement from the other financial year, because then we had achieved 81%. We've got 15 out of 18 in total that we have achieved. There are 3 targets that we have not achieved. One is the approved organizational structure, and the delay there is also related to the delay in filling the CEO position, because for you to have a proper organizational structure, it must be led by the CEO, so that then the structure can be professional and well done. Then there was the issue of branding and integrated marketing and communication strategy. As you can see, the NDA's work is not in the public domain. So we've started that work, but it has not been finalized. It's work in progress. Then there was the issue of developing the digital platform for the new operational model, which is also being undertaken. It's also work in progress. At some stage we'll be finalizing those. So as the Minister said, she has given us concurrence to fill the CEO position. Of course, you recall that position had gone to Cabinet before, and there was never an outcome that was brought to the board. We are where we are and now. We're going to advertise the position next week. We hope that by January, February, latest next year, it will be completed, and that will run concurrently with the Minister's process of appointing the new board. There's the other position that is also critical to fill, is that there was a dismissal of the CFO in the last 2 years. We also going to advertise that post next week as well, with a view to complete the process in February next year. The delay has been that the matter of the dismissal of the CFO is in court. So we had to get legal opinions as to can we fill the vacancy. In the meantime, we had 2 legal opinions to the affirmation of our decision to do that, and the Minister gave us concurrence. The other critical position was the company secretary position that has also been vacant. There's been quite a high turnover rate in that position. We have filled that position with the incumbent starting on the 1st of November. So those will be the highlights, but the CEO and her team will then give us the details in terms of the other performance issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. In the presentation today for the NDA, we will focus on the audited annual performance report for 2024-2025, We will also focus on the audited financial statements. And in the discussion on the financial statements, we have also enhanced our slides just to ensure that we respond to some of the findings that come from the AG and just to give the committee some background in terms of how we are addressing those findings. We do take cognizance that there will be an opportunity to come and give a detailed audit action plan, but we thought it's important just to reflect on some of those findings. We have also attached the review BRR report, but we will not be presenting on it. We just included it for purposes of progress report for the committee. Having said that, I'm going to allow Mr. Mrule to go through the presentation, and after that, Mr. Chingage will deal with the issues of the financial statements. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Good afternoon, Chair and members. Good afternoon, Minister, Chairperson of the NDA Board, CEOs present, and colleagues. I'm going to quickly go through the presentation as detailed on the first slide. These are the areas that we are going to deal with. Just the contextual background, I think the Chairperson of the NDA Board, Chief Matsila, did already allude to the aspects that pertain to our performance in the 24-25 financial year. I will deal with the legislative mandate of the NDA, and some of this is really by way of reminder. Members would already be familiar with some of the aspects of the presentation, particularly as they relate to the aspects of the APP, your legislative mandate, your vision, your mission, and those other things. We'll deal with the annual performance report and then the annual financial statements, as the CEO has said. The BRRR we have appended, but we will not present it in any detail. As the Chair said, this is the performance of the NDA. We are sitting at 83% for the 24-25 financial year. And this 83% is made up of 15 targets that were achieved out of 18 targets. And the Chair has detailed the 3 specific targets that we did not do well in. The first one relates to the approved organizational structure, and we have since taken a decision to defer it. As we were planning for 25-26, we deferred this to the 25-26 financial year so that we don't lose focus on it and it's kept on the radar. The second one is the consulted branding and integrated marketing communication strategy, which we also subjected to the same process. It is in the 25-26 financial year, and I will deal with the specific reasons for non-achievement. The third one is the developed digital platform for the new operating model. We have relegated this to the annual operational plan because there's a number of dependencies around the conclusion of the organizational structure and the dependent business processes. So we need to map the business processes, make sure that they are in existence before we finalize the digital platform, because this is what now begins to focus on the internal operations, but also the external interface, to the CSO and the donor community outside the NDA. So I think it is important that we do not punch above our weight. We size, the kind of battle that's before us in relation to the dependencies that we know. We have, as I said, put in place part of what led to where we are at 83% is the fact that we put in place a recovery plan. Earlier in the year, we were quite subdued as an agency in relation to performance, but we put a recovery plan in place. We revised the APP, and all of that contributed to where we are at 83%. This is the legislative mandate of the NDA, which the members are fairly familiar with. The first is the primary object of the NDA, and members would know that NDA has a dual mandate. And in the primary object, we are contributing towards eradication of poverty and its causes by granting funds to CSOs. And we grant funds for the purposes of carrying out projects and programs aimed at meeting the development needs of poor communities, and number 2, to strengthen the institutional capacity of other CSOs involved in direct service provision to poor communities. So that's what the primary mandate of the NDA is. That's what the core mandate of the NDA is granting funds to civil society organizations to pursue development projects in impoverished communities, but also to strengthen the capacity of the same CSOs. And at a secondary level, we're focusing on promoting consultation, dialogue, and sharing of development experience between civil society organizations and relevant organs of state. So the space that we occupy is one of coordinating and integrating development agenda of the state, and interacting as well, such that there's dialogue and there's sharing even of development experience between the CSOs themselves. But we are looking at making sure that in some departments where there would be a need for further interaction concerning civil society organizations, because we are the chief custodians of civil society organizations, then we are able to work on such relationship being in existence. For example, we have partnered with some of the sitters who are struggling in that particular area in making sure that they can make serious entrance into that particular space, organizing civil society organizations, mobilizing them for purposes of fulfillment of their own key objectives, the key objectives of our partner departments. The second aspect of the secondary mandate is that of undertaking research and publication aimed at providing the basis for development policy. And we have started making, as you would see in the presentation, some strides, in making sure that we're changing the shape of development policy by making sure that there's empirical research that is conducted, by making sure that there's distribution and there's dialoguing around the research recommendations and the research findings. So that's really what the legislative mandate of the NDA is. We wish to remind members as well that there are in Section 4 and in Section 10 of the NDA Act, there are specifics on the NDA, what the NDA must do and what the NDA may do. And key to what fuels us as well is the fact that even when there are shortages in relation to fiscal provision, in relation to our own budget from voted funds in Parliament, we are able to supplement those funds by way of contributing funding for CSO development work, by partnering within government, outside government as well. And you will see later in the presentation the extent to which we are able to mobilize these resources. We also work with international donor organizations towards funding CSO development work. Number two, what the Act says, Section 4.2 in particular, it says the NDA may grant money from its funds towards CSO development work. So there's a distinction that the Act itself draws towards what we must do, which is the contributing, and that contributing is what funds necessarily the work of the CSOs in impoverished communities. Number two, it's what NDA may do, which is funding, using your funds, your fiscal provision as such, towards funding of civil society organizations. So I think we are making that distinction, which is brought about, by Section 4.1 and Section 4.2 of the Act. And Section 10 really just speaks to how the NDA is funded. The vision of the NDA and the mission of the NDA is remains a society free of poverty and unemployment. And our impact statement is to have reduced levels of poverty in South Africa. I'm not going to go into any length on that, knowing that members have had a sense of familiarity with that. I'm going to now go into the specifics on the audited annual performance report. The NDA, by way of reminder members, is split into 3 programs. The first program being governance and administration, the second being CSO development, and the third being research. And in our performance for 24-25, we were sitting at 83%, and we've made an effort to, as I said, we started quite subdued. We started at 19%. When you look at the bottom donut, we were sitting at 19%, and we rose to 83% by the end of the financial year. And what really marked, this serious strides and difference was the fact that we put in place a recovery plan and we implemented it to the T, which resulted in 83% performance. But again, 83% performance in 24-25 is an upward movement. Although slight, from 81% to 83%, but the snake graph just at the top shows us where NDA was in 2021. So we are seeking here to present how NDA has done, in the past 5 financial years. So we are sitting at 83%. What makes up this 83%? Just broken down into the 3 programs. The first one is the program 1, which is administration. In the first indicator which I spoke to and the chair spoke to at large is the organizational structure approved. And what we're able to do by the end of the financial year is to have a draft organizational structure in place which was produced. However, there were a number of critical components, such as the delayed conclusion of the business processes, which led to the non-achievement of the targets. As members would understand, the development of the organizational structure can be a long, drawn-out process, and we went through that rigorous process after the approval of the turnaround strategy. So there's quite a number of things, particularly relating to making sure that the business processes are fully mapped out and fully responsive to the aspects that are outlined in the turnaround strategy. And that was an area of big delay insofar as the organizational structure is concerned. As I said earlier, Chair and members, we have deferred this. We are currently at this point in time, almost at the point of conclusion of the organizational structure, where there are few consultations, internal consultations left before we consult, I think, with the board and then externally as well. But where we are by the end of the financial year, we should be able to report that we have fully delivered on this target. The second one is the number of staff capacitated in the implementation of the NDA model, NDA operating model. Our targeted number was 100, and we were able to surpass this. And this is primarily out of partnership that we had with DGRV. I spoke earlier about partnerships and collaborations that we are having with donor organizations, and DGRV is one such organization that we partnered with towards training, particularly the development practitioners who are on the ground, on the cooperative model largely. So we were able to fully achieve this indicator on staff capacitation and development. The third indicator, which we did not achieve, is the branding and integrated marketing communication strategy. And we had prolonged internal processes that delayed the commissioning of the project, and subsequent implementation of most of the milestones were therefore affected. And those relate to our own procurement processes, which will seriously delay this. And I think what we have done in deferring this to the new financial year, we made sure that we start way ahead of time before the beginning of the 25-26 financial year, to make sure that all such delays are avoided in the implementation of this indicator in the new financial year. The next one, which is
Sorry, just so that I follow you, because I'm listening very attentively. Who is DGRV?
Oh, DGRV is a funder, is a German funder.
Okay.
Yeah. So the acronym is DGRV, but the name is, of course, in German.
Oh, okay.
Which I will battle to pronounce.
Okay.
Chair.
No. Forget it. It's okay. I understand.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry about that, Chair. I'll try and minimize on the acronyms. The fourth indicator relates to the development of the digital platform for the new model. And again, in this case, there were prolonged internal processes. I've spoken already about the business processes that had to be in place to make sure that as we put together this digital platform, we should be internally responsive, but it should also have an external interface such that we can be in some form of communication with the CSOs in relation to the different services that they need from the NDA. So because of the delay in the organizational structure and the subsequent delay in the mapping of the business processes, we were unfortunately unable to, do well in this indicator. And this is the same indicator that I said earlier that we have put it in the AOP until such a time that we have fully concluded the organizational structure, so that we remove all dependencies before we put an indicator and target in the APP. So this is the last of the 3 targets that we did not do well. In the rest of the targets, these are the targets that we achieved. Beginning with the rand value of financial resources raised, our target was 60 million and we were able to raise 64.8 million. And these resources were raised from different funders, from different partners, within government, a number of other government departments at a national level and even at a provincial level, we're able to collaborate and mobilize resources from them. From the private sector as well, we're able to mobilize resources, and from donor organizations such as DGRV. So there's quite a lot that we did in this particular space to give effect rather to Section 4.1, which enjoins us to mobilize resources from within government, outside government, and even outside the borders of the country. The next indicator, Chair and members, is the percentage of prior year audit findings resolved, and our target was 80%, and we were able to I think we had a total of 19 findings. Out of those 19 findings, 17 of them we were able to fully resolve them. And I think when we presented, we touched base on that when we presented the 23-24 audit action plan. So we touched on some of the aspects of this that we had already done. And this came about, of course, because of an intensive focus on making sure from our internal audit unit on making sure that we make good on the action plan, start implementing it, relating to the AGSA audit findings. So we're sitting at 89%. The 2 that we did not do well in related to HRM&D, the development of the HRM&D strategy, which has since been developed and is going through internal processes of validation and then will be approved before the end of the financial year. The second one relates to consequence management, which we will touch on, I think, as the presentation continues. And that concludes Program 1, which is our support administrative program. In Program 2, which is our core program responding to the primary mandate, the first indicator relates to the number of CSOs who have accessed resources for implementation of poverty eradication interventions. And there's a relationship with the mobilization of resources concerning this indicator. So we were able to far surpass the target of 120, where we're sitting at 565 by the end of the financial year. And this really came out of collaboration with different partners. We would begin the year with a plan of the partners that we are targeting, but I think given the work that we do and the realization, I believe in different sectors and corners of civil society space, there's realization of what the NDA can do, and there was quite a number of partners that came on board that led us to far surpassing the target of 120. The next indicator on Program 2 is that of community engagements on poverty eradication conducted. And this relates to progressive implementation of the turnaround strategy. And this is focusing on establishing community-owned organizations. Now, these community-owned enterprises, we had to start, a crucial step is engaging communities, so that you don't go to the communities and you start implementing or establishing community-owned enterprises without any prior engagements with the key stakeholders in the community. So we thought, let's go to the communities and identify in the communities the key stakeholders and start assessing, profiling communities and engaging on the basis of the community assets that are existent in those particular communities, such that we are able to intervene collaboratively, working in partnership with communities and not coming as government, as it were, and almost parachuting solutions in communities without working with communities. So it was a crucial step for us, and that's why we put it on the radar, because we wanted to even develop some blueprint out of what to do in community engagement that would lead to successful creation of community-owned enterprises. These community-owned enterprises that we are talking of, they are made up of different primary cooperatives and has an open membership of community members participating and being part of these particular community-owned enterprises. They are also made up of just members of the communities that have a particular common interest in pursuing certain development interventions. So it's not your traditional cooperatives or traditional MPO with 5 or few members, but the membership of this stretches even beyond 100 for some. So there's a lot. That's why there's a need for us to emerge out of this process with a blueprint around community engagement. The next indicator relates to the CSOs capacitated with skills to implement poverty eradication interventions, and our target was 1,000, and we were able to build a capacity of 1,786. And again, what we did is that in our partnering, in some provinces, we partnered with organizations in the private sector, like your ASUPOL, for example, in building specific capacity in specific sectors of the, of CSOs. So we had partnerships with them. As I said already, we had partnerships with the DGRV, and the partnership with DGRV was so pervasive in the sense that it did not only end with the NDA, but also extended to the CSOs, even to taking CSOs across the borders of our country to Swaziland to go and learn, to Eswatini to go and learn on cooperative development, running cooperatives. So it was quite a very useful exercise for the CSOs. The next one relates to the number of beneficiaries participating in income generation projects, and this relates to work opportunities. And our target was 1,000, and we were able to deliver at a level of 1,119. And these work opportunities are created from the funding that is received. So in our provision of funding and in our capacity building, what is important is how do you convert this to real livelihoods, to sustainable jobs on the ground. And we are able to create 1,119 jobs. These are jobs created by, through development interventions implemented by the CSOs that we have funded. We may have funded some of them directly from the fiscus, but in many cases, this would be CSOs that have been funded through rents and cents that we mobilized ourselves from our partners. And that concludes Program 2. I'm going now into the last program before handing over to the CEO, to the CFO rather. Program 3, we focused on 2 things in Program 3 largely. It's evaluations and research, and this really comes from the from the secondary mandate. Now, on evaluations on poverty eradication, we're able to put in place to start with a design evaluation, and the idea of starting with a design evaluation for assessment of NDA programs. What is the overall effectiveness of NDA programs? It's because we want to start tracking progressively through evaluation, starting with a formative assessment and ending with a summative assessment, which could be an outcome evaluation or an impact evaluation of our programs. But what we have started putting in place is that at least there are there's a sense of understanding the lay of the land concerning the programs that we are implementing. This would be different programs, from income generation programs, our capacity building programs, grant funding, all manner of programs that we do. So we are putting in place, and the reason is because so that we can learn and start designing these programs better, such that they have the desired impact in communities. So we've started with that. We're able to achieve that. The second one is the policy environment, policy landscape report. And this relates to us just understanding what is the policy landscape, what are the CSOs having to contend with in the implementation of their programs. The CSOs are in municipalities and they are subjected to certain bylaws, municipal bylaws. And part of what we gained out of this research study, as we examine the effectiveness of this development policy, was that there are some impediments and serious difficulties and challenges that they have to contend with. And that is the role of our research primarily, to then identify that when you have these CSOs having to not be marginalized, and be part of the mainstream economy as such, how do you make sure that you are able to achieve that with the present realities concerning the policies that confront them? So that's what came out of that particular study that we pursued. The next one is the policy and advocacy framework that we wanted to do and have approved. We were able to have that approved, and what the policy lobbying and advocacy framework is really looking at, now that we have identified some of these impediments, some of these barriers, to economic entry of the CSOs, how then do you, as NDA, as a voice, as it were, or custodian of CSOs, and the CSOs themselves, how do you mobilize such that you are able to present and lobby for changes in development policy? Because that's the core of our secondary mandate. We need to influence debates on development policy, and our lobbying is really making sure that we create platforms that are necessary for such to be achieved. The next indicator is the research report on policy impediments. So we looked at, so there's a relationship between this and the previous one that I've presented, but we look at policy impediments at a national level, going to the specific policies at a national level, at even a local level where these CSOs are. What are some of those impediments, and how we can go about relieving the CSOs, of the burden of compliance requirements where possible. The next one is when we have done now these particular researches, these studies, we then had policy briefs, focusing on lobbying and advocacy, and focusing on just disseminating some of these research studies that we have conducted. And we did that around policy briefs that we produced that were focusing on enhancing development and economic policy effectiveness and addressing regulatory barriers, as I said. So we did the study, and then we produced policy briefs so that we can start engaging in some form of debate and dialogue, around the areas of influence in development policy. The final indicator in Program 3 relates to dialoguing with stakeholders on this particular policy. So we put in place, whether it's webinars, whether it's roundtables, and we had 2 of such in the last financial year. One was focusing on linking social protection beneficiaries to sustainable livelihoods, and another one was looking at soliciting input for the proposed NDA amendment bill. So those are the key dialogues that we had. So we had extensive dialogues with the CSO, and these are held together with CSO. So this is not dialogue between government departments themselves, but it's rather focusing on CSO and harnessing inputs from CSOs around key issues of linking social protection beneficiaries, to sustainable livelihoods, but also on the process which is underway relating to the NDA amendment bill. We thought it would be necessary just to give a sense of progress towards the outcome targets. We have 5 outcome targets. The first one is to achieve a clean audit by progressively over the next 5 years, and we are currently sitting at an unqualified audit with findings which is a regression from 2 years ago when we were sitting at a clean audit. The second one relates to increase on the baseline for the brand improvement of the NDA, or the improvement of the NDA brand rather. and we have started putting in place, as I said, the brand strategy, which is underway. It's under development, and then we will progressively be in this current financial in the next financial year. We will be undertaking a survey to determine, the baseline against which you can then be able to monitor progress going forward. The next target around mobilization of resources is an ambitious one of 900 million over the next 5 years, and we are currently sitting at 64.8 million. So progressively we are going to really increase this and make sure that we are able to realize this. So the targets for the future financial years will now begin to working towards 900 million, and we are getting a number of partnerships in place where we think it may be possible to still reach and possibly even surpass this target. The next target of 5,000 work opportunities, we are currently sitting at 1,119, which I've just presented, which is a sizable chunk of the 5,000 that we are targeting for the 5 years. The next one, which is the last one, is the full implementation of evaluation and research recommendations. We're looking at full implementation of this concerning evaluations that we are conducting, such that they inform programs that we are implementing, whether it's capacity building program, grant funding program, any of the programs that NDA implements. We do thorough evaluation on that, and there are findings and recommendations that must be implemented. Same goes to research recommendations arising out of the studies, that we are doing, making sure that we are able, when a research is done and there are recommendations and findings in that, the report does not go to file 13 as it were, but it finds implementation, and there's monitoring and tracking of recommendations or implementation of recommendations at least. Chair, at this time, let me hand over then to the acting CFO to finish the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Before you take over, as you change over, I was listening to the documents such as your policy briefs and your reports. Does one just have to go to www.nda.gov.za? Thank you.
Thanks. And thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair, honorable members of the committee, honorable Minister, the DG, the chairperson of the board, CEOs, and colleagues. I will be presenting, I think in summary, what the financial performance of the NDA was in the 24-25 financial year. And I think we'll start first with the summary of the financial performance, which is in the main your income statement, which seeks to indicate what were the resources available and how much of those resources were utilized or implemented. And the slide, the bar on the left, or the graph on the left, just seeks to indicate the summary of the income statement in the main. And I think the green bars seeks to indicate the total revenue, which were the resources that were at our disposal in the financial year 2024-25 versus what we had in the year before, which was 23-24. And if we look at the total revenue for 2025, we had total revenue of 212, and in the previous financial year we had revenue of 227. And I'll indicate where the reduction was and what was the reason for the reduction. And if we look at the grey bars, they seek to indicate the total expenditure, what we had spent. In the current financial year 24-25, we spent 209 million against 224 in the previous financial year. And I think the bar on the extreme left just seeks to indicate the difference between your total revenue less your expenditure, which is your accounting surplus. So we had an accounting surplus of 2.1 in the previous financial year, and 3.3 million in the year that we are reporting on. And I think we all know that obviously as an entity of government, we are not in the business of making a profit, but obviously it happens that all the revenue is not spent or something like that. Then if we look at just the revenue, I think the graphic presentation on the right just seeks to indicate that in terms of revenue, we had a reduction of about 14.3 million in terms of our revenue if you compare 24-25 with 23-24. And the main reason for the reduction, I think if we look at the total revenue, the biggest portion of the revenue is the grant that we are allocated from National Treasury or from the Fiscus through the department. And in the current financial year 24-25, we had a reduction in our allocation of plus minus 8.1 million. So in the previous year, we had an allocation of 220, but in 2024-25, the allocation was reduced to about 212 million. So that's where a significant portion of the reduction in the revenue is coming from. And in the next slides, Chair, this slide just seeks to indicate now, I think I've presented the revenue or the resources that were at our disposal. Then this slide just seeks to indicate then the expenditure. And I think the donut graphs on the left seeks to indicate our expenditure against budget, and the line graph on the right just seeks to indicate the comparative expenditure patterns between 23-24 and 2024-25, with the light blue bar indicating the expenditure for 23-24, and the dark blue bar indicating the expenditure for 24-25 by program. And if you quickly look at that, program 1 in 23-24 we spent about 11 million, and in 111 million, and in 24-25 we spent 105 million. And if we look at program 2, which is the two bars just below the first ones that I've just presented, in terms of program 2, we spent about 103 million in the previous financial year, which was 23-24, and 97.5 million in 24-25. If we look at program 3, the smaller bar this is one of those programs that is allocated, I think, a smaller percentage of the total budget. In the previous financial year, we spent 4 million against 6 million in the current financial year. And the last bar at the bottom is a summation of the three programs added together. In 24-25, we spent 209 million against 224.9 million in the previous financial year. Then if we look at the donut graphs on the left, I think if we look at the first one, it seeks to indicate what we had spent on program 1 versus what was allocated as a budget for program 1. In terms of performance or utilization of the budget, we were sitting at 83% for program 1, where we spent 105 million against an allocated budget of 127 million. And I think the reasons for most of the underspending in program 1, firstly, was due to I think unspent part of the allocation for compensation of employees, obviously due to some of the key vacancies that we had in the previous financial year. There were a number of projects that were planned where we had we had issued tenders and we had received non-responsive bids. So those contributed to I think the underspending there. If we look at program 2, which is the core of what we are established to do, we spent 96% of the budget, which is the second donut graph. So it indicates that we spent 97.5 million against an allocated budget of 101. So we had there an underspending of 4.1 million. But I think I'll indicate, in the next slide, that indicates the commitments, meaning that those are contracts that were already concluded with CSOs, but obviously the funds were not disbursed in 24-25, but they were subsequently disbursed in 25-26. So if you were to add the 4 million of committed projects into the 97.5 million, which is reflected in the income statement, we would be sitting at 99.4% of budget utilization in program program 2. Then in program 3, we had spent 83% of the budget, which was 6.3 million, against an allocated budget of 7.7 million. And I think members will remember that at the end of 24-25, the NDA had planned to host the NDA CSO conference, which was subsequently postponed or held at the beginning of the 25-26 financial year. So we had allocated, I think, from our resources about 1.4 million, and that 1.4 million obviously was not spent because we had postponed the hosting of the CSO conference into the first month of 25-26. I think it was held in April of this financial year. Then the last bar graph at the bottom seeks to indicate then in total that as an organization, in total, we are sitting at a budget utilization of 89% against, obviously we had spent 209 against total allocated budget for that financial year of 236 million, Chair. Then the next slide, Chair, I will not waste time on it. It just seeks to indicate what is sitting in our balance sheet, what makes up our balance sheet. And the bars, the line graphs on the right seeks to indicate the financial position as at 24-25, and the blue bars indicate what was in our balance sheet as at the previous financial year. And I think we'll see that we had total assets in the current financial year of about 79 million, 69 million of which was your current assets, and a big percentage of our current assets is the cash that is sitting in the bank in terms of the funds that are sitting in the bank that are being implemented. So as at the end of that financial year, I think we were sitting with cash of about 67 million. So I think we can see that a significant portion of the 79 million is the cash that is sitting in the bank that is being implemented. Then if we look at the previous financial year, we were sitting with total assets of 95 million, and your total current assets made up about 84 million. And of that 84 million, 82 million was the bank balances that we were sitting with at the end of 2024 financial year. And your a biggest percentage of your non-current assets is in the main made up of the assets that we're sitting with in our offices, the computer equipment, the furniture that sits in our offices. Then if we look at the other side of the balance sheet, which is the monies that we owe to our suppliers and to funded projects, in the current financial year, we were sitting with liabilities of 46 million against 59 million in the previous financial year. And I think if we look at the reason for the reduction in our cash is that we were holding, I think, a lot of cash on behalf of CARA, the Criminal Asset Recovery Account. We were implementing a program on their behalf, and we completed the implementation in 23-24, and we paid back the remainder of the funds to the Criminal Asset Recovery account at the end of 2024-25. Around March, we refunded about 15 million of the funds that were remaining from those allocated funds from CARA. And the same applies to the liabilities, because when the CARA funds are sitting as an asset, the other part of it that is not implemented is sitting as a liability. So the reduction in the liabilities also in the main due to that. And I think there was also a significant reduction in the provision for leave, because we were implementing a new policy where in the past employees could keep leave days up to 20 days. According to the new policy, an employee can only retain 8 leave days at the end of the leave cycle. Then the next slide, Chair, just seeks to indicate the commitments, as I've alluded to earlier, that you, as at the end of the financial year, you'll find that you have contracts that you have entered into, but there's some of the work is being implemented, and we normally then, at the end of the financial year, these commitments form part of our application to National Treasury to retain those funds, because these funds will then form part of the surplus that we declared to National Treasury, and we applied to National Treasury to retain these commitments. And I think we can see in the financial year 24-25, we're sitting with total commitments of about 15 million, 11 million of which was in operating expenditure contracts, and 4 million was funds that were committed to CSOs but were not paid out at the end of the 24-25 financial year. Then I think if we compare that with the commitments that we were sitting with in the previous financial year, we were sitting with commitments of 19.2 million, Chair. Then, Chair, the next two slides seeks to indicate obviously the audit outcomes, and we've tried to we've taken this directly from the AG's report in terms of the dashboard that they have in their report. And I think the first part just seeks to indicate that in terms of the financial statements, as my colleague has indicated, that in the past 3 years we have been able to attain an unqualified audit, but obviously with findings, and it's a slight regression in 24-25, because in 2022-23 we were sitting with a clean audit, and there are obviously efforts to make sure that we go back to a clean audit. And then on the annual performance report, I think it indicates that we had a regression in 23-24 and 24-25 because we had material findings in performance information. And if we look at then the other areas that the AG look at in terms of compliance with legislation, I think we had a regression in expenditure management, and that in the main relates to identified instances of irregular expenditure that were picked up and reported in the current financial year. In terms of annual financial statements, we've indicated that there were some findings or material findings, although we managed to address them before the audit was concluded, but those findings seeks to indicate that there are some weaknesses in the systems and that we need to in the systems and controls that we need to address. In terms of consequence management, I think the colleague has spoken to consequence management. That is one area where we've regressed, I think, in the last 2 years, and we are attempting to ensure that we clean up the book on IFW and ensure that all those cases are taken through the internal process, and once those are concluded, we take them through to National Treasury for condonation, and then once they are condoned, then we can remove them from the irregular expenditure book. Then, Chair, this slide just seeks to indicate it's an additional slide that we have added, and this slide seeks to indicate what the areas where the findings were in the 2024-25 financial year. And I think we can see that we had a total of 38 findings, and the graph on the right just seeks to indicate the areas where those findings were coming from. And I think we can see that I think we had about 13 findings in the current financial year that related to the office of the CFO, in the main relating to weaknesses around controls in the preparation of the annual financial statements, which we're addressing. And the second area was in the area of the CEO, where there were findings relating to performance information. And I think that's where a significant number of the findings were. And if we look at the findings in 24-25, we had a total of 38 findings, whereas in the previous financial year we had about 19 findings. I think the colleague has spoken to it.
My sincere apology. Honourable members, the acting CEO did say to me that these slides that are not on the soft copies are actually in the hard copies because they were added and they ensured that the honourable members do have them in your hard copies. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that to you. Yeah, and they will obviously send them to us electronic soft copy as well. Thank you so much. You can go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair. So in the main, this is the summary of the audit findings for 24-25, and I think we can see we had a significant number of findings in the area of the CFO, mainly relating to some weaknesses in the preparation of the financial statements and the controls around the preparation of some of the records there. And the next slide, which is the final slide, Chair, just seeks to indicate of the 38 findings, which ones were the key or material findings that resulted in a regression in terms of the audit outcomes for 24-25, meaning that if we didn't have these material issues here, we would have retained a clean audit. So we're just highlighting the key findings the key material findings that were identified, things that we need to look at to ensure that we can get back to a clean audit, and we are indicating what are the action plans that are in place and what is the progress that has been achieved in terms of making sure that we get back to a clean audit. The first finding, Chair and members, related to inconsistencies in the allocation of specific points. So those were issues around SCM in terms of how specific goal points were allocated. It's a weakness in the SCM process, and we've already developed a checklist to ensure that those issues do not come out, that we force then the colleagues in the unit to make sure that those things are checked, are verified before a tender is issued or an RFQ is issued. Then the second block, then on the left-hand side under the key findings, those are the areas where there were material misstatements in the annual financial statements. Those were in the area of the preparation of the statement of budget and actual, the cash flow statements, and the disclosure of commitments. I think it could be power. My apologies, Chair. I think it's a power.
Do you have
issue
a hard copy?
A hard copy, yes.
Do you? You
Yes,
can
I
use
do.
it because
Yes.
we also have hard
You also,
copies.
you
Yeah.
also have it,
Yes.
Chair. My apologies
No problem.
for that. So, Chair, in terms of those areas that relate to the material findings on the financial statements, the action plan that has been put in place is that the audit committee is now enforcing that on a quarterly basis, instead of preparing these audited financial statements at the end of the financial year, we are now preparing those on a quarterly basis. So the audit committee is enforcing that we prepare those on a quarterly basis and we submit them to internal audit to review them, so that those become a build-up to the preparation of the financial during the year. Obviously, after as issues are identified by internal audit, we'll get a report, and then we will then ensure that we address those, so that come the end of the financial year, most of the issues have been identified earlier on and have been addressed. So that is the action plan that is in place in terms of the okay. Yes, okay. Thank you, Chair. The next finding, Chair, I think related in the main to consequence management. All right. So in terms of consequence management, I think the AG has indicated that we are not taking all those cases through the labor relations process as recommended by the Loss Control Committee, because in terms of the framework, once any regular expenditure is identified, there is an assessment that is done to determine what has happened, where were the lapses in the controls, if there were any employees that are responsible, so we've taken those through the labor relations process, and in this quarter, Chair, we are then submitting those to National Treasury for condonation. So they are at the final step in terms of taking those cases through the consequence management process, and obviously submitting those to National Treasury so that we can reduce. I think somewhere in the annual report, I think you could see that we still have a an IFW, irregular expenditure book of about 82 million. So these efforts are to ensure that we reduce that book. And I think because we've started implementing consequence management, we are reporting less and less cases of irregular expenditures in the last 3 years compared to where we were, I think, prior to that, Chair. I think, Chair, then the last slide, I think, was the the BRR, and I'll hand back to the CEO. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. As I indicated earlier, the triple BRR report is more included in the report that the DSD has submitted as part of the portfolio report. We just included the slides just to summarize some of the responses that were linked to NDA, but will not be going into the detail. So as we conclude, we'll just want to recommend that the committee note and support our annual report and also the financial statements, and note the content and the action that we are taking to implement the audit action plan and the audit findings. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you, Acting CEO and the two gentlemen that presented to us, and the chairperson of the National Development Agency. Thank you for those presentations. I think I will go straight, honourable members, to inviting you to deliberate on the presentation as has been presented, and with your questions or your comments, or both, as I know this committee. So I will do that by having a list by show of hands. I don't see any hand at all, which means this is an amazing presentation. Oh, okay. Now I'm being told how to chair this meeting. Start that side. How is that possible? Honourable Tong, I saw your hand before you took it away. And the Honourable, was it Honourable Bishop Mtsweni? Okay. So why are the hands down now? I haven't written them down. What happened? Are you tired? Okay, Honourable Bishop, I have got your hand. Honourable Mahato, I saw your hand. And Honourable Abrams. And who? Oh, Marais. Okay. I'll note Honourable Marais in her absence, and then Honourable Monyai. Sorry, Honourable Reverend Kobaza. So in that order, it's over to you, Honourable Tong. Let's use the next door's one. There we go.
Thank you, Chairperson. I don't know how are we going to approach this one, Chair, because I have about 50 questions to ask. I don't know if I'll get all the... Yes, 5-0, Chair.
Okay, Honourable Monyai and Honourable Abrams.
Okay, Chair. My first questions will be based on strategic and alignment. How does the revised APP align with NDA Act mandate, the Department of Social Development's strategic priorities, and the National Development Plan? Second question is, what evidence demonstrates that policy briefs and research outputs produced under Program 3 have influenced policy development or program design? Question 3, Chairperson, how will the NDA transition from recovery made to sustainable implementation in 2025 and 2026? Should I move to the other batch?
You want to go to the next 43?
Okay, Chair, no, I'll come back.
Honorable Bishop Nsoni.
Mphathishlalo, ngiyabingelela amalungu ahloniphekileyo alendlu. Asibonge umbiko ovela kulomnyango ka-NDA. Ufushane Mphathishlalo engifisa ukukwazi laphayana ekhasini lesikhombisa kukhulunywa ngombono nenhloso yomsebenzi ka-NDA ukukwehlisa izinga lenhlupheko kubantu base South Africa. Ngiyafisa ukuthi Mphathishlalo uNDA akangibeke esithombeni esicacileyo ukuthi kuyenzeka yini lokho ukukwehlisa izinga lenhlupheko kubantu base South Africa. Uma kwenzeka kuziphi indawo, ubonakala kuphi njengoba sibona izinga lenhlupheko lenyuka kangaka ezweni lakithi? Ubonakala kuphi umsebenzi ka-NDA wokwehlisa izinga lenhlupheko? Bayawubona yini bona lo mehluko loyo? Bayabona yini abantu bekhishwa enhluphekweni yokungaqashwa beyithola imisebenzi ngesandla sika NDA? Ngiyacela ukuthi uNDA angelekelele kulokho ukuthi kuyabonakala yini lokho Mphathishlalo. Ngicabanga ukuthi ngokomqondo wami uma ukuthi uyenzeka ngempela lo msebenzi owenza umehluko kubantu base South Africa ubakhipha enhluphekweni, akufanele sibe neoversight eyodwa no NDA kuma province ayisishagalolunye. Cabanga ukuthi kufanele sibonakale kuma province ayisishagalolunye siwahamba wonke esimemeza uNDA ukuthi ozani nizobona imisebenzi esesiyenzile ukukhulula abantu enhluphekweni. Kuyenzeka yini, kwenzeka kuphi? Angangisiza yini uNDA ukungibonisa ingwe idla ngamabala? Angithokoze.
Honorable Bishop Nsoni, the Honorable Makhato.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Greetings to the Honorable Minister, the DG, all members here, and also honorable members. I just want to appreciate first the 83% performance achievement of the targets. So I think the department tried by all means to achieve some of the targets. But at the same time, I just want to say, how are you going to fast track the delivery of APP targets? So, because 83 is not 100%. 2, how are you going to improve the number of community engagement program to deals with skills, dedication, and intervention? So I think the community engagement is too progressive in this in this department, and also the skills eradication also plays an important role. The third one, Program 3, has to do with the policy environment scanned report and also the research. So I just want also to check how far are they with this Program 3, because it's very much important on our side. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Makhato. Just before we go to the Honorable Honorable Abrams, I just want to, I don't know if the NDA needed some assistance with the questions from the Honorable Bishop Nsoni, who thanked the NDA for the presentation and referred you to page 7, slide 7 of your presentation where it talks about the reducing of poverty and unemployment, and then wanted to know, the question is it happening as far as you are concerned, and if yes, where is it happening? Because as far as she's concerned, there is poverty everywhere in this country. So if it is happening with the contribution or with the intervention of the NDA, would you please then invite this committee? Because it's not enough that we just went to Gauteng for the oversight out of 9 provinces in this country. So she would be happy to receive an invitation that says, please go to the other 8 provinces where this poverty has been eradicated and unemployment has been reduced as a result of your intervention. I think that is what the Honourable said. So we will now go to the Honourable Abrams.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and all protocol observed. And thank you for the presentation from the NDA. My comments and questions are as follows. The Chairperson of the board indicated that the board appointment process and the CEO appointment process will run concurrently. But it can't technically run concurrently if the board needs to be appointed first before the CEO. Otherwise, you stand the risk of the new board rejecting your CEO. That has been the reason that's been given to this committee, you know, over the time period, which then raises a question that if this process is running concurrently, is then the board already predetermined? Because it can't run concurrently. And then the other question I have, if on slide 25 it says that you'd wish to have your CEO appointed before the end of the financial year, can we just get clarity again on when does the current board's term come to an end, and when will that new board be appointed? Then also, through you, Chair, to the Minister, you know, we've had the previous CEO acting from DSD. Now we have an acting CEO from SASSA. I just want to then understand, what does that say about the SMF staff inside the NDA? Why is there then nobody with probably similar experience as the current acting that's been seconded from SASSA within the NDA? Because then to me it says that there's a challenge, there's a problem, there's a capacity challenge within that SMS level management if we can't then find somebody from within the NDA to fill the acting position. And then the AG spoke about MI that related to performance bonuses being paid.
My serious, sincere apology, Honourable Abrams. I think the question you've just asked now, while the Minister mentioned the leaving of the board chairperson and the leaving of the acting CEO, she did say that she will cover this comprehensively in the next presentation. So if you don't hear your answer during this session, please note that you will get it at the in the next session of or the next part of the meeting. Please go ahead.
I apologize, Chair. I thought that only related to the firing of the board. I didn't know it related to everything related to the board. Okay. Then the AG spoke about MI relating to performance bonuses to the value of 700,000 Rand being paid. If you can please highlight to who, why did that, and on what basis performance bonuses were given, and why did that create a MI that the AG mentioned. Then I don't think just disappointed, I'm actually angry to hear that, you know, 50 million of the CARO grants was returned for, I mean, it was meant for GBV organizations. We know the current state of GBV in our country, And to hear that 50 million was returned, it's just, it's terrible. It's unacceptable and it's terrible. But once again, if the NDA said that one of its mandates is to be a conduit for all government funding, this does not reflect very well on your capability and ability to be a conduit. If you have to send money back and you can't make sure civil society organizations who need it are getting it. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, the NDA does not have the expertise in absolutely everything in order to be a conduit on absolutely everything. For example, those funds, the Carter grant funds meant for GBVs, should have gone to the provincial departments of social development who work with these organizations on a regular basis. They have a list of organizations who they fund. They have a list of organizations who they can't fund due to budget cuts. So therefore, they are the place that can give direction on where best to spend this money. And I mean, we read in articles that the Carter funds went to things like boxing councils and rugby organizations instead of going to actual organizations who deal with GBV. So that's very disheartening, and also I don't think it paints a great picture in that the NDA is supposed to be a conduit for all funds. Then lastly, Chairperson, my last question, because then the rest will stay over. Minister, I submitted a written question to you in July. And the written question was about whether or not the department, SASO, the NDA, does any business with the Institute for Cooperative and Community Economic Development, ICCED. And I did not get a full answer from your department. You answered on behalf of SASA, that SASA does not do any business with the ICCED, but you completely left out whether your department or the NDA does any business with that organization. And I've resubmitted the question and I still don't have an answer on that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Abrams. We will now go over to the Honourable Marais.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, the question that I would like to ask to NDA is that they mention in their pages they get funding. Every time we hear they have funders, we still don't know who are the funders and how much money they're really getting from these funders. We asked the same question the last time and we did not get any answers of that. We come back to the eradication of poverty, Chairperson. If you look at the way the NDA is going, it's like they're having a small business. It's not eradication of poverty. They're doing exactly what the small businesses are doing in Parliament here. They are funding some of these businesses in the communities. And the way they are going is by having 1,000 people that is going for training, does not mean that 1,000 people are going to create jobs. It does not mean that there's going to be poverty alleviation because of those 1,000 people. Do they follow up with those 1,000 people? What is happening at the end of the day with those 1,000 people? Are those 1,000 people contributing to the communities? Are they doing something that is helping with the eradication of poverty? I just would like to know that, because we're sitting with a poverty problem at the very moment where people are dying of hunger, where there isn't food, the food stuff is too expensive, everything is expensive, and the people cannot cope with what is happening. But saying that we're having a few projects that is alleviating poverty, and we have the whole country, 9 provinces, we were sitting with the exact same problem of poverty. How are they alleviating poverty? By giving funding to a few institutions. It is not going to assist. They will have to come up with a better plan. And then I would like to ask the question, Chairperson. There's a process that's happening inside of NDA, an internal process underway to finalize disciplinary processes for historical cases for the value of 82 million and an irregular expenditure of 700,000 for the year of 2024-25. I just want to find out, because it's at this very moment, nothing has happened even to the old cases, because they say it's historical cases. So it means there was no disciplinary hearings implemented anywhere. So it means the lack of consequence management in relation to irregular expenditure and fruitful and wasteful expenditure. I just need to find out, because here they say performance bonus, 700,000 were not paid in accordance with the board's approval. Then they say subsequent management dealing with the irregular expenditure. Then they say 25 instances of irregular expenditure has not been investigated to determine the disciplinary steps needed to be taken against responsible officials. The root cause identified by AGSA was the adequate oversight that has not been exercised to ensure the proper investigation for instances of irregular expenditure are conducted. So that is, it means the way the office is run, the NDA is run, is that anyone can do as he pleases. Nothing is going to happen to anyone. And then they also say that here in NDA you used to have 185 people. At the moment you're only having one. Let me just make sure here, 170. So what happened to the other people that was in your committee, in your offices? Didn't you fill those positions? Why was the positions not filled? And what is the reasons for not filling the positions? And then the other thing I want to know, Chairperson, is that I keep on saying, even with the previous Chairperson, we had fights here in this committee because the way she was answering us, she was very upset the way when we ask her questions. Is that I don't see, because the funding that is coming in basically is going for your salaries, and the way that you are dealing with things is like it's not important, because here they are saying, the AG is saying that the AG is not happy with what is happening there. Leadership did not exercise oversight responsibility regarding finances and performance reporting and compliance, as well as relating internal controls in terms of financial management, AGS report to the NDA. So I just want to find out what are the NDA really going to do about the procedures that is happening in the organization. And then I also would like to know 15 million that was set aside by National Treasury, you sent to the National Treasury, just to keep it aside for you because you're going to use it again. For what purpose are you going to use it, and how are you going to use it if you have already sent it back now? Yes, the NDA submitted to National Treasury a request to retention of a surplus fund of the value of 15 million for the 2024-25 financial year in order to provide for its contract and approval operational commitments. Why would you do that? Why would you ask them to retain this money? What is the reason for the retainment of this money? And you didn't make a target. Why, if you didn't, your target was standing at 83%, 17% was not made. Why wasn't it achieved? That is the thing that I would like to understand. Then they say 82 million irregular expenditure, NAA 25 cases not investigated. What is going to happen with that 82 million irregular expenditure? That is my question that I want to ask, and I need NDA to come up and say what are they going to do with the eradication of poverty. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Marais, for those questions and comments. The Honourable Monyai.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, Minister, DG, Chairperson of the Board, and the Acting CEO, and senior management of the organization. One, rise to welcome the 83% performance. It's a serious achievement which must be really welcome in this regard. However, it will be better going forward so that we see you get at least 99 or 100% performance. And I'm sure we can do that with the strengthening of the governance of the NDA board. And we welcome Minister's efforts and also to make sure that the NDA board is appointed as practical and urgent as possible. We also welcome the chairperson of the board, Bamsanda, announcement that as of next week, that the critical posts relating to the CEO and as well as the CFO will be advertised and therefore subsequently get appointment through. This is a very serious commitment, and we want to see it to be expedited as practical and urgent as possible, as the Minister would have pronounced in her opening remarks. With respect to strategic impact and sustainability, beyond the outputs to outcome, you reported supporting over 565 CSOs and capacitating thousands of individuals. What specific measurable outcome, for instance, increase in income, job sustainability, and enterprise become self-sustainable? Because you are responding to current South Africa socio-economic challenges through this intervention. It is also important that we welcome and commend you with respect to the research with respect to Program 3, that you produced the several high-quality research reports, policy briefs, and held some dialogue. It is perhaps important that you can define the process of converting this research insight into tangible changes in policies and program design. If you can provide one of the concrete examples of this year's research that has already been directed and altered, how the ANC, how the NDA operate and advocate. No, Chairperson, let me replace the good word called, the good content word called the ANC by NDA, because we are dealing with that. Okay, it is very imperative with respect to the impact of these CSOs. What is the exit strategy that you have, that the NDA has defined, the defined pathway for these CSOs, these community organizations, community-owned enterprise, you supported through funding to become self-sustainable entities? And out of 565 that you have supported, which is a great impact and achievement, I would want to know how many out of these are already linked with the pathways mechanism that you have developed. And I think one of the issues, Chairperson, that time has risen, Chairperson and the Minister and the DG, we would want to see that you expedite the consequence management in relation to the irregular expenditure, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And I'm saying that there are people that have done wrong, but I'm saying let's take practical and urgent action with respect to consequence management. The issue of and I think the rest of the issues, Chairperson, they will follow under the next agenda item that the Minister would want to do. And I want to check as to how many of these CSOs that you have are owned by women, are owned by youth. I just want to get the demographics if you have them. Because today we're about operational performance and financial performance. And lastly, I don't think it's acceptable that any administrative official can really give themselves bonuses without the approval of the board. That is not acceptable. Therefore, there should be consequence management. And if needs be, money must be recovered for those that have given themselves bonuses without the board approval. Because we must adhere to strict governance and compliance as an organization. The rest, I'm very impressed, Minister, by the performance of this organization, given its historical background, where we are coming from, and where we are going. So therefore, the important issue, Chairperson, is that they must really the board must finalize that issues of the structural design and get it approved by the board, because I saw it has been raised somewhere there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Monyai. And this has to do with the National Development Agency. Okay. Honorable. No, it was mentioned here in this meeting. Honorable, Honorable Reverend Kobaza.
Asbonge, Chairperson, Sibonge, Minister DG, Sibonge, or CEOs, and honorable members. Sibonge, Slalo, Nange room, Ayakolo, we are able to even see Minister, you know. Yesterday, ipele yonke meeting, singambonanga Minister. Iyakholwa le room siyabonga. Honorable Chair, we are dealing with NDA. The name is National Development Agency. National Development Agency. Again, let me say it again. National Development Agency. There is no other one in the whole country. The agency is only one. There is National Development Agency, and it's this one. And maybe I can say also it also draws from the NDP, what it's supposed to do. But the numbers do not concur with what it's supposed to do. Uthi uzakwethu uthinta leli page elibalekile le vision yayo. I've always said in this committee that it is important for us to get the real numbers, CEO. When you say that you are reducing poverty, it is important that when you start maybe the financial year, we know where the poverty is in terms of percentage in the country. So that in the middle of that term, we are able to say we have reduced poverty by so much because we got it at this point, at this percentage in the country. But now we are shooting in the dark. We are just shooting everywhere. And it's not good for our people that are out there, that are in poverty, that are unemployed. When there is such an agency that does this in the country, I think your first beneficiaries are the SASSA people. Now, maybe my first question would be, how many SASSA people are we working with? When we are talking of 100 individuals, 1,000 individuals that have benefited out of your programs, then how many that are SASSA beneficiaries? Because the main thing that we want to do is to take out those people that are in SASSA and make sure that those people are sustainable. And we cannot continue working with other people outside of SASSA while there is SASSA there are beneficiaries in SASSA that we should be working with, and we should be taking them out of poverty. I think it's criminal, or I don't know what should I call it, to give yourself bonuses with this, what I have in front of me, with this report, what I have in front of me. I don't think that the country outside or the people outside, abantu angiboni bangayijabulela ukuthi i-organization ekuthiwa NDA izinikeze ama bonuses yet imsebenzi yabo ayibonakali on the ground. Angiphinde futhi abantu base South Africa angeke baze bayijabulele ukuthi nizinikeze ama bonus even without i-board approval. Kuthiwa into enjani nje leyo? Kuthiwa yini leyo? Iwesi ke eyokuthi nithathe imali le ye-GBV u-15 million niwuphinisele emumva, angiyazi leyo nto ithini kubantu besimame that are facing these, that are victims of the GBV in the country, knowing that there's an organization that have taken money, about 15 million back. Ay bakwethu. Ay bakwethu. I think we spoke about the on administration. We also spoke about the number of staff capacitated in implementation of the new model, and it is important also mhlawumbe ngoba sila si committee ninani, and not to mention organizations outside of government. You know, I can tell you a lot about an organization called DGRV. I can have a file, and if I pull that file of that organization, no one will be happy here. That organization, and we are bragging about it here. And I know that you have done work with them, and I can tell you now the impact outside. There's no impact that this company and you have done in the provinces. I know. I know. I have proof.
Honorable Munyai, I would like to chair the meeting. Honorable Reverend Kwabaza, this is the Portfolio Committee on Social Development. It's not an ad hoc committee of anything. So let's just stick to the presentation.
Yes, there is a GPRV.
Okay.
There is DGRV. And it says that GPRV did good work with them. And I'm saying not so, because they did not say the bad work that they've done with them. Forgive me, Chairperson, I'm a Zulu man. I don't go this way and this way. Ngayiqonda nje into.
Order, Chair. Order, Chair.
Honorable Tong and Honorable Mnyai have asked to chair the meeting. And Honorable Reverend Kwabaza, no CVs, please, and identity, whatever. Let's just ask the questions.
Thank you so much. The last one, I think it will be the outcome targets. The question will be the five-year target. Out of over 18 million people that are in the grant system, we are talking about five year, right? It's 5 year, and it says here we will then create 5,000 work opportunities. Do we really mean this? 5,000 out of millions of people that are in poverty, unemployed, and we are saying that as an organization which is National Development Agency, Are we saying to our people only 5,000? They must just wait there. They will get opportunities out of the millions in the country that are facing poverty and unemployment. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Reverend Kobaza, for your questions and comments. I think that was the last of the honorable members that wanted to ask questions. I'm just going to go straight back to the honorable minister and the honorable chairperson of the NDA, and obviously the acting CEO, and for them to take over and tell us how they will respond to the questions that have been asked. Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, I will request that the chair of the board, if you can please respond, the acting CEO, and where there are gaps, the executive must come in. I really want to, as we have indicated, that the matter of the former chairperson, the former acting CEO, who was an official of DSD, will be part and parcel of the report that I will table. On the questions that Honorable Abraham asked, that she has not received any responses, I want to apologize and commit that I will make a follow-up, because I wouldn't want to respond from that question on my feet. I guess I would really have to make a lot of research so that I can give her a complete response. About whether the time frames of the board, this board, its time frame ends in December. This is why, Chair, I articulated on the process that I've already put in place, wherein by end of this term, this year, we'll bring the matter to the Cabinet for Cabinet's approval. We've advertised, we've closed. We are now in the process of looking closely on those candidates that are fit for purpose as according to the NDA Act. About whether the AFO and the CO should be appointed, indeed, Chairperson, all the questions that the honorable members are asking here they are pointing to one direction and only one direction, that until this important institution has its permanent CEO and its permanent CFO, it will be able to resolve its challenges that are coming a long way. Chair, whether this is not by any way predetermined, no. The known and accepted process will be followed, as I've just given a go-ahead to the board to start that process, which is a process, Chair, that is longer in nature, that I'm sure looking at it, it will go beyond December, which at the time there will be a new board. However, it will not have to start afresh, because in that way it means NDA will have another 6 months without a permanent CEO and a permanent CFO. And again, Chair, as I indicated, that the delay that we had in the appointment of the permanent CFO brought us other challenges of the former CFO, whose matter has been in court, who now we have to negotiate. Chair of the board will speak more about that. It has been a very tedious process, which now want to appeal to say, let us be allowed to move on so that we can stabilize NDA, Chair, so that it can be able to address all the issues that the honorable members have asked. I'll then give over to the chairperson of the board for him to respond to the rest of the questions. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister, for those remarks, and thank you, Chairperson, and honourable members for for the questions. And I think there are questions, but there are more inputs on how we can improve the NDA performance in particular. So one may not be able to go blow by blow, but the general sense is that we must act with agency. We must look at the issues of eradicating poverty and migrating people from SRD to self-sustainability. I think that's the gist of what is being said. Honourable Klo talks about the issue of strategic alignment and the revised APP and what evidence that we have that the policy briefs out of our research work would feed into our planning processes. So that's normally done through the annual strategic planning processes, where we bring all information for planning purposes to be processed to feed into our planning and our delivery model. So all of that is there, and I think the AG has not really found us wanting on that. So we just want to confirm that that is done. And then the details are there in terms of the documents that arise from the strategic planning sessions. And the question of sustainable development issues is one that we continue to grapple with as to, you know, how sustainable are these SEOs after our funding interventions. And the point there is that we make financial interventions and capacity building interventions to get them sustainable. Even if it's an early childhood center, for instance, where for 6 months or so we provide salaries to those who are teaching to ensure that they start to get some money to pay for themselves and continue to pay salaries. So some of the interventions appear to be small, but they make a very big impact. And the question that Honourable Reverend is asking, it's a fundamental question of resources. So with the limited resources we have, that's what we can achieve. Those numbers, although they look small, if you look at the national landscape, but you know, if we can't have more money, that's only what we could achieve out of the expenditure, that is out of the income that we have amongst ourselves. So I think Honourable Mshweni also talks about the same issues around vision and objectives to reduce poverty. And then I think what you said is quite touching, in the sense that you're asking us a fundamental question: where are these beneficiaries? How many are they? Can we invite you to site visits? And I think there are quite a number of sites that we can take you to see for yourselves as to the little money. Sometimes it's only about less than $1 million, but it makes a big impact. So we have a list of funders that through our efforts will pay money directly to those establishments, and how much they pay, we have that list. We can make it available to yourselves to see. But then we appreciate that request to take you to site visits. We'll do that very soon, to take you to some of them so that you can see what we are doing. But what you are asking is quite an important question. Honourable Makhato, again, same issues of delivery variables and the AAP targets. How will we increase the number of engagements? I think in the next planning processes, we'll see how we can lift the bar in terms of adding new numbers to take on board your questions. The issue of Honourable Abrams, I think to a large extent the Minister has touched on it. And I think it's against balancing that issue of the new board and the fiduciary duty that this current board has in stabilizing the institution. So when the institution is not stable because you don't have a permanent CEO and a permanent CFO, you are liable individually and severally in terms of the collapse of institution if it may occur. And I think there's a principle that is established in law that says that an incoming board, nevertheless, is fully bound by the decisions of the outgoing board, unless they want to rescind some of the decisions. But other than that, you take over, just like we did. We had to accept the liabilities of the other previous board. That's why we'll never come here and say it was the previous board. We took all the problems and we move with them. the issue of capacity challenge within the NDA, it is true that there's no capacity really, because in some of the key senior positions, they are acting people. There's acting CFO who can then act as a CEO. And when you have a capacity problem, it's always good to go outside, and especially to your mother department, and say, otherwise, if you don't help us, we're going to collapse. And we appreciate what the minister has done to help ourselves. I'll ask them to deal with the 15 million issue of the CARA and the bonuses, because we didn't receive bonuses. Yeah, the honourable member there talked about the same issue of the bonuses and the numbers. Really pleading for us to improve on the numbers. The issue of irregular expenditure it's covered in the report in terms of how it has been dealt with and how it's being reduced in terms of reporting. I think what is left to be done is for condonation to go to Treasury. But the internal processes of consequence management have all been undertaken. It's just that second or the last lap to get Treasury to condone, and then we close the cases that date back to 2014. So there's quite a backlog in terms of those issues there. Honorable Mnyai, you hammered the issue of the strategic impact in terms of our work, and also the issue of capacity building of these SCOs, and the issue of the linking our impact insofar as the monies we give them to procure and train them with their ability to self-generate their own income. And I think the AG makes a very good, important finding that we must enhance our monitoring mechanisms to be able to monitor that component, to say how far down does it go in terms of the actual income that the people get and the ability to have more jobs created. So I think we take that on board, that going forward is one of the key issues we're going to address. I think I'll leave it at that for now and allow them to deal with the numbers, the monies, and those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the responses. Just before I do the allocation, I just wanted to indicate that on a number of issues, particularly when it comes to resource mobilization, I think one of the things that I've identified is that it's very critical. If you're going to take people's resources, then you must put capacity into place to have people who are going to manage those resources into perspective. And therefore, the priority would be to strengthen the finance unit, so that we ensure that whatever monies that we are taking from people, when it gets to be allocated, we are able to trace it and ensure that we are accounting for it, or it's recorded also in our financial statement, so that in case there's any challenges, we can all stand up and account, and we know that we took money from so-and-so, and it was allocated to so-and-so, and we can also look at the impact around what it does. One of the critical things that will be happening was that just because I come from SASSA and I've been dealing with the reporting and statistics within the organization, critical is that in the next week I've been requested by SASSA, their strategic plan, to come and make a presentation around how we can collaborate so that we can share expertise and share the resources in order to form strategic partnerships within the household is in SASSA and DST before I even look outside, because there's a lot of interventions that we can collaborate with SASSA and DST while we are also looking at other areas. So we are working on that strategy in terms of looking at I do get access of the information of all beneficiaries. We do have access on the information around the SRD grants, the CSGs, and so on, and some of their profiles to say where are they and how best can we link them to opportunities and developments, and what kind of training or what kind of cooperative life, because some of the people have skills to do school uniforms or whatever, but they don't have the papers to participate in the tender processes. So it would be some of the opportunities that we'll be looking at to say, what small difference can we make? In terms of the issue around the capacity, I understand that it's an institution, it's a country challenge to say you have the objective to deal with development across the country, but this is the least funded organization that we have from a government perspective, and therefore we have to rely on monies coming from outside. So part of it is also to strengthen capability within the organization in order to do credibility assessment of the organization and the risk vulnerability. Because when you take money from somebody, you must know who's that institution and where do they come from, where do they get the money from in order for them. Luckily, most of the funders that we have are within the government institution for now. They are from the government departments, including some of the people are from, some of the funding is from social development, some of the funding is from SASSA and some of the SITAs. But it's important that as we go outside international and whatever, we work with DERCO, we work with other state security institutions to make sure that we check the assessment and be sure what we are dealing with. So those are the small interventions that I'll be dealing with in my short period while I'm still helping until the issue of the CEO or until my term of secondment is dealt with. I'm going to ask Metlapolosa to respond to the issues relating to corporate services, particularly the issue of the bonuses. Metlapolosa, can you please?
Where is that voice from the wilderness?
It's mine, Chair. Sorry, I didn't put my mic on. Apologies. Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, Minister, Chairperson of the NDA Board, DG, acting CEOs, and colleagues. I will answer to the question on the bonuses. The NDA has a performance management policy, and that policy seeks to recognize employees for excellent performance. And it says that if employees have achieved their targets that would have been set in the beginning of the year, they would be considered for bonuses that ranges between 5 and 10% of their cost to company. The policy further states that the board will consider whether to declare bonuses or not annually. And their consideration will be based on whether performance was achieved as set and whether there's affordability, the organization can afford the bonuses or not. In the year under review, the organization could not afford payment of bonuses as prescribed in the policy. And therefore, management requested the board to consider and approve a token of appreciation, not the 5 to the 10% of the bonuses, to motivate and recognize employees as per the policy. And we are bound in a way to implement the policy because of the bargaining unit and the organized labor that we have. And so there was money found that was then put to the board, and the bonuses were approved less than what would have been paid under normal circumstances. The board did express what the committee is expressing, that the NDA cannot afford to pay bonuses and that we need to relook at that. And we are looking at that policy. I would pause there, Chair. Thanks. Thanks.
Khumalo to speak to the CARA funding and also the issue of other projects-related measures.
Thank you very much, CEO. Good afternoon, Chairperson of the committee, honorable members, honorable Minister, the DG, acting CEOs, and colleagues. On the issue of CARA,
the Kara project had a time frame in which we expected to implement the project. We managed to implement quite a number to partner with quite a number of CSOs to the tune of 312. But then during the process, there were CSOs that did not meet the requirements as per the contracts which we signed with those CSOs. So the NDA had to withdraw the funding that was directed to those CSOs that did not comply with the requirements. And the time frame for implementation of the project came to an end. As such, we had to return the funds to the funder, which is DSD, our mother department. So that's the main reason why some of the funding had to be returned back to the department. And then on the other issues, the chairperson of the board, Bomsanda, responded adequately, particularly on the issue of the low targets for the development program, that our targets are informed by the budget that is at our disposal as an organization. We can't plan more when we don't have the funds to implement the programs that we planned for. The other question that came from the Honorable Mtsweni is on the vision and the mission of the NDA, whether we have been able to achieve what we envisioned to achieve. I would say yes, but again, that is determined by the budget that we have. And the Honorable Chair of the Board has adequately covered that aspect to say that we have projects throughout the country which we can be able to take members of the committee to visit and see the actual impact that those projects or those programs are achieving within communities, because our main focus is the communities that are mostly affected by poverty. So our projects are in the deep rural areas of the country. So we have projects throughout the country, and if we were in a position to massify those projects, the impact was going to be visible immediately. There was also a question on improvement of skills within communities. The NDA has a capacity building program which is informed by the mandate of the NDA, the primary mandate, because we are expected to grant fund civil society organizations as well as provide capacity to strengthen their organizational institutional governance. So in terms of the skills, our skills are not accredited, but what we have done is that we are working in partnership with some of the SETAs, although that has been slow, but our aim is to make sure that the CSOs receive accredited skills through the SETAs, because our programs are not accredited. So that is one of our key focus areas which we implement in collaboration with the SETAs. And then the other one, I think the Honorable Chair has covered this one on the funders as well as the amounts, because this one needs statistical information. We request that we submit this information in writing, where the funders will be clearly stated as well as the amounts of funding. But just to talk about the total amount which we managed to raise for the financial year, it's at 64 million. But I want to mention that in actual fact, we raised more than the 64 million. Unfortunately, some of the partners that we work with, their systems are not aligned with our systems. One of the funders provided portfolio of evidence of the funding 2 weeks ago, which is already outside of the reporting period of the NDA, and the amount is at the tune of 10 million, meaning that if we received the portfolio of evidence, we would have recorded 74 million instead of 64 million. So that information will be provided in writing if we are allowed by the chairperson and the members of the committee. The other question which has been asked is on measurable outcomes. Indeed, the measurable outcomes that result from the funded CSOs are there. If you look at the number of CSOs that were funded, the 565 CSOs that the honourable member spoke about, we managed to create employment opportunities that are above 1,500 from those civil society organizations. And I believe that we'll be in a position to also provide information as to the number of women that benefited from those, the number of youth, even men, and persons with disabilities in terms of the outcomes. And our programs, they also integrate the element of mentoring and coaching. We partner with some of the industry experts. We have started to implement programs to support CSOs that implement programs in the fishing industry, particularly in the provinces. That industry is new to us. We don't have expertise to provide the support to the civil society organizations. However, we have partnered with experts industry within that sector, particularly in the Eastern Cape, where we have partnered with also with the Department of Fisheries, who are providing mentoring and coaching as well as funding to those civil society organizations. So those are the outcomes that we can speak about as we are seated here. And then the last one which I would like to speak to is the areas that are affected by poverty. We have, as part of the strategy, started by identifying 22 wards within the country that have the highest poverty rates. We have that information, even the number of villages that fall within those wards. We have the information, and will be in a position to provide the information in writing. Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Members and CEO. Those are the questions that I had to respond to from my side. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, I'm going to ask the CFO to do the final comments, and then we can close on the
Thank you, CEO. Chair, I'll be responding to the question that speaks to the commitment, the 15 million. In terms of the accounting standards, right, and the government reporting standards, if you have a contract in place as at the end of the financial year, you have not spent all the money relating to that contract, you report those as commitments, and come the end of the financial year, it is a government process that you must declare to National Treasury what is the surplus that you have, and then you apply to National Treasury. And in the past years, they've always allowed us to retain the portion of the surplus that is committed, because if you say something is a commitment, it means you already have a contract and an obligation to pay. So they've always allowed it. And I think it's a timing thing that always happens in accounting, that you have appointed a service provider who's currently doing the work, but the work is not completed. It will be concluded, let's say, subsequent to the end of the financial year. And in terms of the government processes, we are allowed to then declare the surplus to National Treasury and apply to National Treasury to retain those funds. And that process normally ends around November or December, where you get the response, and then that indicates what is it that you've been allowed to retain. But in the main, the funds that are already committed in the forms of contracts, the National Treasury has always allowed us to retain those amounts, because you already have an obligation legally to pay those contracts. Thank you, Chair. I think, Chair, maybe the last one that was not spoken to was the one on vacancies, to say maybe why some of the vacancies are not filled. Maybe the executive can also add there. But during the, I think, as we've indicated, we are currently in the process of reviewing the structure. And obviously, sometimes as you're reviewing the structure, if you have vacancies, you want to hold off on some of them, because then it presents you with an opportunity to say, if you have a position that is there that you don't need in the new structure, then at least you can take those resources and allocate them to other. And I think in this process, I think there's already some vacancies that have been identified that they may not be needed in the new structure, and those resources will then be removed from the compensation and be used in other areas where there's need to increase the budget allocation. Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson, I think that brings us to the end of the question. But if there's one that I've missed, I can always respond to it.
Honorable Munyai, and followed by the Honorable Abrams and the Honorable Murray, in that order.
Honorable Chair, I thought we were coming to conclusion, but the response of DDG Corporate Support Services from NDA has not been very helpful. One, I think the policy she's talking about must be forwarded to the committee by tomorrow, because it exists. And there must be something wrong. Remember, they were audited by the AGSA, not by us. And the AGSA found that you were paying yourself without the board approval, bonuses. Now you say we have a policy. There must be something wrong with that policy, which doesn't really have the board oversight. And yet, how do you get to reward yourselves when you know that there was a lack of financial control and your financial statement had material misstatement? How do you reward yourself as management when you know that on issues of accountability, the AG report you have not investigated 25 instances of irregular expenditure and so on? How do you do that? I think the minister, the management, the chair, and everybody has tried to cover all these things. Now you come up and say, no, by the way, we have a policy to pay for ourselves without the board approval. That is not acceptable. It is not acceptable at all. You have been audited. Why you didn't show that policy to AGSA? Then you choose to say to share it with ourselves. That is not acceptable. We are satisfied with the minister's response, the chairperson's response, and CEO's response, and other management. That issue, I think, is not right. And I think that policy must be reviewed, which you think you must assess yourselves, you pay yourselves bonuses without the board, which have a responsibility of fiduciary duty on the entity with respect to oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Munyai. May I just check, are you expecting an answer to that?
No, I'm expecting an answer. Remember, I said they must send the policy, and the board need to review that policy, because it's inconsistent with the findings of the AG, which means it's not compliant.
Thanks, Honorable Munyai. And then we will go to, was it Honorable Murray? Honorable you?
Yeah.
Okay, Honorable Abrams.
Thank you, Chairperson, and I find myself agreeing that the answer provided on the performance bonuses was not satisfactory, and that I would also request in writing the policy on the tokens of appreciation. But if they can take it a step further, and maybe so that we can see not the individuals, but maybe the positions that were assigned these tokens of appreciation, as well as the percentage, because you never gave us the percentage. You just said it's not the to 10%, but he never told us what is the percentage, because I would assume, and this is the thing I do not want to assume, but now I'm left to assume that it's still a percentage of the person's salary. So if the positions can be in that Excel sheet or table, as well as their level, their current salary, and then what percentage. And I think another important column to be in that is that how much of their target did they achieve? Did they achieve 100% of their performance target, or did they achieve 95%? Just so that we can understand what exactly you were granting, what type of performance you were granting tokens of appreciation for. And then the other question, follow-up question in writing, if the DG can maybe just indicate what the department spent the 50 million of the CARA funds on, since it was returned to the department. Thank you.
Okay. Also, I just need to clarify for myself. Are you saying that the fact that Honorable Mnyai has asked for the policy, you also going to write about the same policy, or is it a different policy that you're going to write to ask for the policy? When they send it to Honorable Mnyai, you don't want that copy?
Chairperson, regardless of who sends questions in writing, the committee secretary sends it to all of us. So everybody benefits from everybody's questions that the department and entities send in writing.
Okay, so you're not going to write, and you're not going to get it in writing. Who are you going to write to, Honourable Member?
I wasn't going to write to anybody, Chairperson. I said my follow-up questions can be received in writing.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to know about this policy that's going to be written about and see. Honourable Murray.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just want to find out that 15 million that went to for that grant. The acting has just said now that they are putting it aside. But if you don't finish your grant money, automatically the next year you're getting less money. So I want to know, is that 15 million still going to be 15 million? Because automatically, if you don't finish your grant money, automatically the next quarter, the next year, your money is going to be less. And then I just have a concern. The acting CEO just said when she was the chairperson was saying that they don't have capacity within NDA. That's why they're having an acting CFO and the acting CEO now. So, and what I don't understand is that by saying that the CFO is he coming from NDA? He's coming from NDA. There's only the CEO that is coming from SASSA. So by him saying that, they're saying that this gentleman doesn't have capacity, that's why he's acting. The way he was saying it there, I was quite concerned, because how can you say for a person that just presented now, and you say in his face you don't have the capacity to do the work? I was very confused. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, it sounds like I can't hear today. I'm just, because I'm worried. But let me hand over to the NDA. Please respond. I'm not going to say to who.
No, just a quick one. The best way to deal with AG findings is to have corrective action, because it's a finding. So as the board, we're going to look at the issue of bonuses to say, what corrective action are we going to take after evaluating the facts on the table? And we can't predetermine that, but we'll come back to you to say this is the action we have done to correct the issue. And if there's recourse to recover the funds, we'll look at that as well. I think that's what we'll do. On the issue of all I was saying is that we don't have anybody who can act on the CEO position, because the next person who could act would be the CFO. But there's no CFO, there's acting CFO. Therefore, the acting CFO can then also act as the acting CEO. That's the challenge and the predicament. And other executives, like the corporate services one, would have exhausted their time span of 12 months of acting, because you can't act for more than 12 months in a position, which is 6 months, which is what has happened. So she may have acted twice, which not consecutively, but intermittently. But that's why then we had to go to the department. Yeah, thank you.
Honorable. Okay, DG.
Thanks very much, Chair and honorable members, Minister. I don't want to write to respond where the 50 million is. These CARA funds, they come from the Department of Justice. So when you don't spend and there's a time frame of the money, they write it to you that bring back the money that is residual. So they came to us, then we sent it back to Justice. Back from them to us, back to Justice. It's not in the Department of Social Development. As you know, those CARA funds are specific. So it went back. We will still have to, if you want, we will still have to apply to get more to be able to do what we're supposed to do. We don't have the funds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Chairperson, no, we will ensure that all the questions that need to be written in response, we make them available as soon as possible through the office of the DG.
Okay.
Thank you.
These honourable members want timelines as soon as possible. Bamas. When is that?
Chairperson, because the information is readily available, even the list of projects, I do have them on my computer, new as I am. So I don't think, let me give 7 days.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So, honourable members, all the information that you needed, it will be on your desks, on your inboxes rather, within 7 days. This sounds like it brings us to the end of this part of the meeting. And I do wish to thank the honourable chairperson of the NDA, the acting CEO, and the gentleman and everybody else, the senior managers that responded to questions. And with obviously a rider that the requested information by the honourable members will get to them within 7 working days. I just think now we are going to go to the next part of the meeting. And I don't know if members want a comfort break of sorts or not. We can just go. Okay, let us go. Coffee break then it is. And that is only 10 minutes. Huh? Well,